What's up, everyone? I am your host, DJ, aka Sexy Bad Choices, aka Denless. Denless sounds weird. You know what? I'm just going to say Zenless Zone Zero Advocate right here, boy, because Genshin Impact developers Hoyoverse is making a new game, and I am excited for that, joinks.
I thought you were abbreviating maidenless, but go ahead.
Oh. I might just start this whole podcast over again.
I am Sean MF Ross.
What does MF stand for?
Yay, the white man.
There's questions I'm confused, but it's okay because we have who else here?
I'm Avery.
Nailed it. Look at that. Look at that.
Wait. To all my Twitch fans out there, about to hit you with the. There we go.
Uh-oh.
You got
went
followers
from 0 to 60 real quick. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Must have got some Cuddy this week. He coming up in here confident.
I am famously maidenless.
I mean, it don't got to be from a. You know what?
Famous.
All right, with that being said, you know who we are. Press X Star Podcast is a weekly show where we talk about the latest gaming news, reviewing the biggest games, and give you our thoughts on the games we are playing. Our goal is to expand the video game media landscape through an underserved point of view. The black point of view. See what I did there? I told you what the point of view was. It's us because we're. Anyways, Avery, tell us what's happening next.
Okay, so this is from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg. It's essentially the big fucking. Okay. So once again, time warp that we all exist in. Yada yada. Wibbly wobbly. This story dropped the Friday, so I want to say the 12th. It's not that night, and it was a news story of that week. So, so we're just long story short. Sony PlayStation staff fumes over CEO's abortion comments. Okay, so I want to say around Thursday. Well, okay, previously, but okay, how do I say this? Because I'm not going to read Jason's article.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just gonna give you my fucking Pepe Sylvia conspiracy of how this happened. Yeah. I don't think it's a conspiracy. I think this is legitimately the timeline, but this is how I'm editorializing it. Bungie put out a statement and against what the Supreme Court was doing with Roe v. Wade. They made a big stink about it. Bungie will be a Sony subsidiary. The framing on whether they're going to be a PlayStation studio is still up in the air, but in regards to at least the org chart that I saw, they won't be under PlayStation Studios, but they will be a Sony-owned subsidiary. So, and it's not here or there. Long story short, they did this. Probably days later, Jim Ryan and the suits at Sony wrote up a letter that pretty much both sided the situation and told people to just like not stew conflict over this subject. To think of our for both our staff and our players, customers, our player base. And then he ended it with an inane comment about his cats and their first birthday and wanting to buy a dog in the effort to add levity to the situation.
That story was 5 paragraphs long. Wow.
So I have personal thoughts about this. We all have personal thoughts about this. Mm-hmm. But the Roe v. Wade situation is very much a conversation that should be led by women.
Yeah.
And
sure.
The best thing as quote unquote an ally, I don't put quote unquote in there to say it wasn't. I put quote unquote in there because it means it means different things to different people, and I don't want to fucking get into the semantics of that. Yeah. Long story short,
you're gonna get us canceled. Just stop it.
We get what you.
So, and unfortunately, Press X Start doesn't have a female voice to
not yet
speak on those matters. So, here's a break, Marcus. I've linked in the show notes a episode of Press X. Well, no, wow. P.S. I Love You XOXO. And I've given you a timestamp for a statement made by Janet Garcia, who is a contributor to Kind of Funny and one of the co-hosts of P.S. I Love You XOXO. And she gives the most succinct thoughts about this entire matter in regards to PlayStation's actions, Roe v. Wade, and the bullshit of this non-apology.
Well, where do we get these cat birthday cakes? Because also I want to get one for my cat. But all that aside, there's a lot going on here. I mean, I feel like what you could have said was, all that aside, well, where do we get these cat birthday cakes? Because also I want to get one for my cat. But all that aside, there's a lot going on here. I mean, I feel like what you could have said was nothing. I mean, I think clearly this is meant to do the classic, let's diffuse by saying, you know, what about both sides? And then kind of walking away. It's not even so much that I necessarily expect, actually, I don't expect any companies to really take a stance on this. I think because it is seen as controversial in the United States, people don't want to be in support of it. I think it's easy to be in support of things that are like, oh, no one would ever disagree with this. Like, you know, things like natural disasters where like no one's in favor of the nature hurting people, right? Like that's a very, it's still nice to see things like that, and those efforts do matter. But it's a lot harder to take a stance on something like this because people are going to be mad at you either way. And that's where I think, you know, the morality and the judgment comes in. And, you know, I had quote tweeted this and I'm like, I don't think I need to, well, I said accept, but people were like, he said respect, and that's a different word. First of all, the definition of respect when used as a verb is to consider of worthy of high esteem or regard, or to refrain from interfering with. I don't think I need to respect or accept or whatever anyone's opinion if that opinion comes at people's lives in existence and livelihood. I think accepting and respecting opinions it does have a place when it comes to some elements of larger policy, but at the end of the day, like, you cannot separate policy from the people that those policies do affect. And I think there are certain degrees at which policies do become inhumane and messed up and rooted in systematic oppression of minority groups or of marginalized groups, of which people that have uteruses are part of that group. So yeah, that's why I don't really vibe with this. And I get that there will be people that'll say, oh, well, like, this is some people's belief or whatever. And you're welcome to have your beliefs, but to impose those beliefs, whether they're your own moral logic, whether they're religion, that has nothing to do with me, right? Like, everyone's down for separation of church and state until it's like, oh, well, that's not what I want to have happen. So that's really the beef here, and where I feel like there will be people, you know, both CEO level in the industry or just colloquially online of, you know, peers, fellow gamers in the industry that will say, oh, well, this, that, and the other. Again, I'm not here to argue for you to believe what I believe when it comes to like when life begins or all that. I'm here to argue for our rights, or like my right as a person that this affects, to be able to do what I want and what I feel is best for my body and my life. And that's the end of it. You know, I feel like I wish y'all had the same energy for the kid that does not exist that I could have, that if you had the same energy for me and my rights and like my being here and having say on my body and my livelihood. And people are like, oh, well, it's not about, you don't lose your life from that. First of all, you can. And like, I don't know, it's just it's a ridiculous era to be in, that the fact that we're running this back in the modern era. But yeah, this does not shock me. It's the easiest cop out ever to be like, well, you know, what about both sides? And I think the fact of, you know, bringing up like, let's something lighthearted, take your mind off it. It's nice that you have the privilege to have your mind off of this topic. I think people need to be aware that the ability to tune out from this and kind of walk away, like, while that can be needed for mental health to a degree, that is a privilege you might have because it does not affect you, at least not directly. Anyway, I argue that it affects all society, but you know, that's my rant.
And it was perfect. Like,
yeah.
Fuck off, Jim Ryan. What a terrible fucking thing to say. What a terrible read on the situation. Everything Janet just said, and then to like, just if your stance is going to be this milquetoast and this playing both sides, don't say anything. Don't say it and then follow up with this fucking story about your cats and your goddamn desire for a dog. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, people's lives are going to be ruined by this decision. Yeah. Even if you want to be like the both sides argument, there's a side of your staff, of your company, that's furious about this. Why would you think this is the way to talk to them about this? The whole thing's fucked from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. And like, I think the thing that strikes me as interesting is that this comes after Bungie about a week ago came.
So I'm going to let that be my statement going forward. And if you guys want to talk about it, you can.
Yeah, I mean, there's not...
I don't see why he felt the need to both side this and then try to deflect about cats? Like what?
I think I know why he both sided it.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's
speaking. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I look at it as a businessman who is making a business decision in this case, and basically started a conversation that he realized, oh, I probably shouldn't have said anything at all. Here's a story about cats. Maybe that could help lighten the mood. And
it was
it's
in the
just like,
same sentence though. Like what? You could have just not sent that email. This is a case of
no, that to DJ's point. This entire story that we're talking about was not born out of a public Sony announcement. This was a private email within Sony that pissed people off so much that they just shared it with other people to make it a public statement. So in his head, this was never. He never had to say anything. Like to what I earlier said, this letter was to prevent people within Sony from further muddying the waters in a way that Bungie may have done as an organization that will be represented by Sony going forward.
And if you remember, like Jim Ryan has a track record of not saying things the best way.
I call it foot in mouth disease.
Side note, kids can get hand and foot disease. So when you say that, that's the first thing I think of, and it's a really bad disease. And if parents catch it, it's like super itchy and it peels your skin. And you look like you have like leprosy or something. It's wild. It's crazy. Don't do that. Don't catch it. Just keep your kids clean. Yeah, and keep your mouth clean, Jim Ryan. Jesus Christ. Yeah. I don't. Go ahead, Avery. I got nothing to say. Yeah.
I mean, it's like this is me, Avery Williams, being on the side of body autonomy and pro-choice. So, and this, there's not
just to make it clear, like, we all believe that, yeah.
Like, it baffles me that you could be the organization, like you could be this is me making a statement about conservatives and the Republican Party. You could be the party of freedom, except this one thing about women.
It's rules for thee, not for me. That's their party.
That's very true.
That's pretty much the short and.
It's like I don't want to dwell on this. It's ultimately, let's see. We're in a weird time loop, so things have happened for us that you're only aware of, but I'm only sticking to the story that we have at this time. So
right.
But we'll see how this story presents itself going forward with specifically PlayStation, and then for the rest of the gaming sphere, because I'm on the mindset that this public kerfuffle with Sony has like lit the fire on. Okay, video games didn't want to make this a because of the corporate interest of video games. Most companies don't want to make this want to make any public statements on this. But now you're in a place where silence is deafening.
Yeah.
Well, silence is accepting the oppressor.
Enough about these women's rights. Let's talk about women's wrongs. No, next story. Go ahead.
Sticking on PlayStation news, I guess, and I'm one of the reasons sticking on PlayStation news. This is from Ryan Dinsdale at PlayStation. At IGN. Ryan, everyone will know, would be the proprietor of the Dimsdale Dimmadome.
Wow, that is his last name. Anyway, go ahead.
But anyway, PlayStation is putting $300 million more into first-party games and aiming for multiple platforms. So Sony had an earnings call. That one of the things we learned from that earnings call is that the PlayStation 5 did not meet its quota, which was somewhere around, I think it was around 18 million that they expected, but they only sold 11.5 or so during the year. Okay. Don't quote me on the actual number they wanted.
Chip shortage.
But so it's all that, and I think I believe bought back some shares that they had, and their plan is to, I believe that's the train of events. It's a bunch of financial stuff. I don't want to it's either here or there. But ultimately, the big news that we got out of this is that they're putting $300 million more into their first party lineup. What that translates into, we don't know.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
They've indicated that this has nothing to do with acquisition. So this $300 million is not going into buying any brand new studios. That's a separate thing that they've hired someone to handle with the rumors of the Square Enix and the more dumber rumors of Ubisoft. But we'll talk about that in the future. But I think what it translates into is that first-party studios are going to get ramped up in terms of teams.
Yeah.
So like smaller studios are going to get more people to help them out make more games. So that means theoretically all of their first part because Sony lives and dies by the strength of their first parties. This is them further investing in. We need every first party to be a God of War level banger. We need every first party every brand new game that comes out of the first party studios to be Horizon Zero Dawn or a Ghost of Tsushima.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also to increase the speed of production as well.
Well, theoretically, more
people would be, yeah. But yeah, I mean, cool. I guess good guy Jim Ryan strikes again. Look at that. He can't do no wrong. Like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is great, but this will only have an effect if we we won't ever see this effect. Now I think about it. Like the games will just the games will just
come out. We won't.
Good.
Yeah. But this is them just like putting like we
future proofing themselves. I guess.
Future proofing. Yeah.
Okay.
So speaking of studios investing in themselves, Square Enix also had an earnings call. This is from Tom Ivan from BGC. Square Enix says it still recommends Balan Wonderworld with confidence following the Naka lawsuit.
So real quick, my mom always told me you should bite your tongue when you lie. Square Enix should have no tongue left. How dare they?
I mean, they can still recommend it with confidence. They can still be truthful in saying that. They're trying to push some sales.
I mean, as funny as this is, it's in their best interest. It's in their best interest, especially with everything, to always be 100% behind a product that is still selling.
Yeah.
So this is them, I guess.
Who's buying it?
I don't know. We'll see. Based on the way Square puts out games, I mean, I don't understand the philosophy. This is we had a lot of earnings calls. So this story, it came from an earnings call. We also learned that Square is taking some of the money that they got from the selling of their 3 studios and reinvesting it in their Japanese studios and building new studios and acquiring new studios.
Specifically for.
Well, the funny thing is this. One of the things they talked about was blockchain technology, and one of the things they wanted to focus on. They didn't necessarily say NFTs, but when you say blockchain, your mind immediately goes to NFTs. Shout out to the people in the past and the future who are listening to this podcast. The NFT market and the crypto market kind of had a giant crash recently. So let's see how lucrative the blockchain investment will be.
Yeah. I'm hesitant to think, of course, this can still happen because, future. But I'm hesitant to think that the PlayStation is still going to buy Square Enix. I feel like moves like this kind of makes me think that they're just trying to shore up themselves versus trying to be, I guess, still trying to be attractive for being purchased. Like, I don't know, like because I feel like, I mean, I guess it's different because they're in Japan, so the general consensus for blockchain / NFT stuff maybe might not be the same as it is over here. But like, whenever you mention NFTs or blockchain stuff, you just poison the well. So this just seems weird to me.
Well, I'm as bad. Like the issue is I'm not a proponent of Web 3.0, whatever that bullshit is.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I'm not resistant to the idea of the technologies that could be implemented with them. I'm just saying, in their current state, they're just a giant grift.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not like when someone's saying, "Oh, we're going to invest in the blockchain." What is that? Tell me what it is. They didn't say NFTs, so that could be anything else. And there could be interesting applications of that technology. Maybe Square Enix will figure it out, or maybe they'll just fucking make maybe they'll turn one of their Final Fantasy Brave Epheus into a NFT minting machine. That's my big that's my big scary thing right now with blockchains and NFTs. All the gacha games I play, nothing scares me more than NFTs being involved in that shit.
Yeah.
But you'll own them now.
Yeah, that'd be scary. That'd be real scary.
Anyway.
Speaking of scary, well, actually, this is not scary. This is the opposite of scary. We're like a Sour Patch Kid right now. We're on the sweet side. So what you should do is be sweet to us and like this video. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the notification bell if you haven't. So like I say this a lot, like, you know, every episode I'm on. And at this point, I feel like all of you should have done this by now. And if you have, all of you, thank you. You've done the work that we requested, and you should get a high five. High five.
It's a big
So
giraffe
tell your
hand.
friends. What? Giraffes don't have hands, John.
So you're a giraffe anonymous now?
Actually, I am.
What?
Very much.
What did you just say?
You heard what I said.
So yeah, make sure you tell your friends about us, because you want to share this brilliant content with them too. You can become better friends with them. Maybe
Even if you're ashamed of us, you can be ashamed together.
Hey, y'all can cry together. That's a Kendrick Lamar joke right there. Okay. Yeah, with that being said, let's get back to the quick hits. Go ahead, Avery.
All right, give me a second. My computer just froze for a second. You hate to see it. All right, cool beans. We're back. So this is a story that is the story. Anyway, this is from IGN. It's from another Ryan Dimsdale banger. Guy's doing great work. Shout out to Ryan Dimsdale and the Dimsdale Dimmadome. I'm also going to shout out the Blessing out of your Jr., whose bit I'm stealing. But how much of my repartee have I stolen from the members of Kind of Funny?
I couldn't tell you. I don't listen.
Hey man, old game's old. Old game is old. So yeah, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order dev claims requests for a black and or female lead were rejected. Essentially, this is someone who used to work at Respawn coming out and saying, well, hey, when we're working on Jedi Fallen Order, the creative team at Respawn, not Disney, the creative teams at Respawn were like, we're not going to make this. We're not going to it's hard to say. We're not going to entertain anything but what we ultimately got.
Yeah.
Which
black people in space? Unbelievable.
Black people with powers? Are you crazy?
I know you guys have specifically. I know you guys have thoughts about this because you expressed them enough in the Discord. My thing ultimately about this matter was that I was never a fan of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I thought it was a mid game that was supported by the fact that it was a Star Wars game. The Star Wars fans jumped on top of it. I think it was a poor man's blood. It's a poor man's Souls game. And it's, for me as a Star Wars fan, I hated that game's ending so much in that, like, it leads up to a moment and then the moment happens and it just ends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll spoil it. The game's been out for 2 years. Like the game, you fight I'm gonna say the second sister at the end of that game, and it's I guess she's the final boss. Okay, and then fucking Darth Vader shows up, and instead of a proper fight with him, the ending sequence of the game is you're just running away. And I'm like, from the context of who Darth Vader is, that's cool, but as a game, that's the most boring combat ever. Because not even like running away is like a super interesting thing. It's just like, I guess I'm just running away.
Yeah.
I say all this to say that no amount of black and or female character would have saved that game in my eyes.
I mean, she would have been a strong black independent woman who would have stood up to Darth Vader.
You know, it's
She don't
funny.
need no Jedi.
Now, I may be a hypocrite for saying I don't know if this makes me a hypocrite. Maybe it does. But looking at this and just thinking and like actually playing that game, and I also with Avery didn't enjoy my time with Fallen Order. Um, I'm not even getting to all that. You can go listen to the podcast back to see what my issues with that game was. But yeah, this makes me appreciate Forspoken, guys.
Shut up, dude. I hate you.
At least they're putting in a black woman. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna fight you next time I see you. I swear to God.
Marcus, I'm gonna need you to clip this entire moment that just happened here, because if we get into the Forspoken talk and DJ starts talking about this character and like this character doesn't seem authentic, I want you to just do your magic and just replace his dialogue with this.
I'm making sure I remember this moment. Okay. I'm good to go. I have this stored in my banks. My mind palace.
Any other thoughts before we move on?
They should have just not made the game. How about that? Okay.
Nay, I say.
I think they should have given the game to an actual action developer instead of. I love Respawn. They make Apex Legends one of my favorite games, but you can tell that they are not an action. Like they don't make melee action games.
Yeah, absolutely. I like as much as I had an issue with the aspects of combat in Elden Ring, like the combat in Elden Ring is leagues better the stuff that you were doing in Star Wars, and it's just like whatever. Like you have a lightsaber. What are you doing like squaring up with the stormtroopers? Like
nothing tilted me more than getting to the game. Oh no, I have to relearn how to use all my force powers. I've suddenly forgotten how to do all this stuff.
Bro.
Yeah. I was on the podcast when they were talking about this game, so this is me just getting out some catharsis about this game. I have the platinum trophy, so I can talk shit. Anyway, Sean, you look like you're looking very contemplative right now.
I'm looking at the next story, I think, and I'm just like, what the?
Oh, dude, this is my favorite story about diversity. Okay, we're gonna go through a gauntlet of Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft, Xbox kind of stories right now. So strap in because it's gonna be fun for me. But anyway,
for you,
this is fun for Kotaku.com. This is by the EIC Patricia Hernandez. Activision Blizzard's new diversity game tool comes across terribly. Now, what Activision
game tool?
What they have done is they have gamified diversity under 7 aspects. In that there's culture, ethnicity, age, ability, body type, gender identity, and sexual orientation. And
there's a septagon, and it's a graph basically aligned.
And like you plug in from what the tool looks like and how I interpret it, you plug in your character. You describe it on those spectrums, and then it grades the diversity depending on how far you've gone on those matters.
What does that even mean? Like, okay, ethnicity. What? How do you grade that exactly? Like, the higher up on the scale, the darker the person. What does that mean exactly?
I'm gonna go ahead and say it. This sounds like a white man idea. Like, what the fuck? What is this?
Body type, like.
I think
the only things that would make sense on this is age and body type. What do they mean by ability? Like, are you in a wheelchair if ability is
no, literally your ability. You're like your physical ability. Like I think when I saw this, they were using it with Anna from Overwatch, and ability she's missing an eye, so she's disabled.
But I get watched by animains a lot. What the fuck?
Like here's my thought about this. This is baffling, and multiple Blizzard teams, devs have come out, especially Overwatch devs have said, we have never used this ever in our entire lives. We don't know why this was made, whose idea it was, but it's really making our attempts at diversity, and things like that, seem like shallow and like unthought of they've come out in records and said about that. But like, I understand.
Real quick from the article, the former Overwatch director Jeff Kaplan said that he would hate for diversity to ever feel pandering like we just had with this spreadsheet. It's a bunch of checkboxes. Yeah, okay, that's.
Yeah. I understand where the mind as someone who is. I'm not going to talk about this. I understand the mindset that would go about building this tool, and in my head, I'm like, oh man, creatively, something like this would really help me out.
But like, the thing is, like, yeah, I can see the intention behind this, right?
Yeah. It's someone who operates purely off of data, trying to solve for X.
Yes, it's just that once it hits the paper, it's like, this is not a good idea. This just feels very pandering. Like, we got to make sure we check these boxes, but like, in a way that you are.
There's another one with 10 points where it has cognitive ability and socioeconomic background, and
it's a whole thing. It's an insane thing that this was a company initiative that was being made.
Sounds like a Bobby Kotick idea.
Like,
it's gonna make us money.
No, if it involves game design, it wasn't a Kotick idea.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. Yeah, this is puts bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah,
bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah,
I appreciate the ad for a gunbrella. Just to lighten things.
Okay. So within the Activision Blizzard sphere of talk, this is purely into their new parent company, Microsoft. Xbox, this is from Kotaku, this is from Ari Notice. Xbox Network had a rough weekend. So this is a story that frankly passed most of us by because none of us play primarily on Xbox.
Jordan was complaining about it. And he was saying he wished.
Jordan's not here to speak his case. So I'm using the data that we have, which is we all were playing video games on our PlayStation's fine, and then come Sunday night, Jordan's like, "Man, fucking Xbox needs to get their shit together," and I'm like, "What the fuck happened?" Oh. So yeah, Xbox Network went down. This is not like the great PSN network going down of 10 years ago, where we all nearly lost our minds because it was just there was no PlayStation Network for a month.
That's funny because back then I had an Xbox 360, so I did not experience that either.
Look at you!
I also had an Xbox 360, and I hated it.
Nah, I had a PlayStation. I was dying for that week or so that was out.
Yeah, it was a month and a half.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It was.
Here's two free shitty games.
I remember distinctly listening to an episode of Podcast Beyond where they were just drunk because they couldn't really do anything because PSN was down.
Oh man, I remember that. I definitely cut out portion.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Anyway, Xbox Live went down, which honestly isn't that big of a deal. These are complicated network infrastructures. Shit can happen. I'm not gonna fault. I'm not gonna fucking jump on the grave of Microsoft and tell them to fix their shit because this shit can happen to anyone. The issue, however,
PSN too. So
the issue, however, is apparently Xbox's DRM policies are so bad that when the network went down, you literally could not play anything.
That's wild.
Like if you had a digital product, then even if you even if you had it downloaded on your hard drive, you couldn't access it. Authentications were in and out for games. Sometimes you could get into a game, sometimes you couldn't get out of a game. It wasn't just that the network was offline and you couldn't play online games. This was like, oh man, I can't play Halo Infinite. I'm one of the 15 people playing Halo Infinite. That's not true.
You mean 16 people, sir?
So you can just disconnect your. This sounds like the DRM that they initially announced for Xbox One, where it was just a constant online check. But before the outage, could you not just disconnect your console and play your digital purchases?
As far as I'm aware, because this is one of those questions Jordan needs to be here to answer.
Jordan.
Yeah, I don't know. I generally assume so. But from what this sounds like this is Xbox will figure this out because they're Xbox and they'll figure it out. Hopefully, well, it depends. I don't know, because if this is in line with their original vision for what the Xbox ecosystem are, why would we change? It's not broken. My only issue is the more and more you feed your entire ecosystem into the behemoth that is Game Pass, the fact that like this network hours went down and you couldn't access anything on Game Pass and the entire value of that service was essentially wiped out because
the greatest value in gaming.
Because you're encouraging your player base
online.
You're encouraging your entire player base to no longer buy games, but to subscribe to the service. That's a problematic thing that you need to have figured out. What surprised me when I heard about this, I'm like, I'm pretty sure. I looked up Sony's DRM policies, and Sony's DRM policies are pretty much like once you have everything initialized, it only needs a check maybe once a month. The DRM policies are still inherently bad in terms of like if I'm taking my PS5 into an area where I just won't have internet, eventually I'm just going to lose access to all my digital content, which sucks. But like that's a month for me to figure this shit out. At least give me the month to figure this shit out. The network being down, and that disrupting your ability to play games is a rough scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's kind of, I guess for Microsoft's sake, it's good that this happened. At least they caught it and they're able to fix it, and hopefully this doesn't happen again. But like as you were saying earlier, like they're pushing Game Pass, so they're pushing an online service, and to see that when the network goes down, you can't play the games that you downloaded to your console from this service that should allow you to play the game.
Oh, this what's even more interesting is that because of the way Xbox emulated old games, in that you're not actually playing the game from the disc, you're running the disc is acting like a key to run an emulator for that old game. Yeah. That also prevents you from essentially playing old games you have on your Xbox hardware.
Yikes.
So it even affected physical games.
Grand.
Yeah. Well, Xbox will figure it out. They've got other problems to deal with, like our final story, which is I'm not gonna say I called some shit. But our final story, this is from Polygon. This is from Ollie Welsh. Bethesda delays Starfield and Redfall to 2023. And this is from Bethesda. We want to ensure you receive the best, most polished version, Bethesda says, of its highly anticipated games. I'm gonna let you guys speak before I say some shit.
I was in no rush to play these, so whenever the hell they come out, whatever.
A wise man once said, "A bad game is bad forever, but a delayed game will completely fuck up my fantasy league."
Yeah, I have a chance now. Honestly, I don't even know why I switched my game. Like, I let you guys convince me that like Starfield's going. Like, I picked Starfield not because I ultimately do think the game was going like. Okay, I'm gonna speak now because I go on.
Well, let me just to like it sucks. Like the only issue that I have is the fact that yes, it did ruin my fantasy league for the year. But them delaying the game means that when it comes out, it's going to be polished. So whatever. And I mean, wasn't.
That's what the hope is.
It should be polished.
Yeah. And I wasn't checking on Redfall at all, so like that doesn't even
polished, just like Cyberpunk.
Yeah, going back to our fantasy drafts, when we made our fantasy draft, I put Cyberpunk. Not Cyberpunk. Wow, Starfield. Actually, that'll actually tie into something else. I picked Starfield as my big thing for two reasons. Counterpick. One, I was banking on Bethesda coming in hot after the last couple games they put out. I also was banking on that game not coming out in 2023, and that was after 2022, and that was after they made the 11/11 thing. Because in my head, I was like, I think the conversation I was having at the time with Jordan, because we were going back and forth on this, is that I have not seen anything of this game. We got an announcement that hey, we're making it. We got a CG trailer of hey, we reminding everyone about this game, and then we've gotten a couple of developer videos that have shown no actual gameplay and barely any of the actual game itself, and just more concept art. The closest of we've got 5 seconds of this game, and it's just a robot looking forlornly in the dark. That's all we've gotten in this game. In my head, in a world where Western RPGs have fallen off a goddamn cliff, Bethesda could not afford to have a Cyberpunk 2077. And Jason Schreier reported shortly after this was revealed that that was what the game was shaping up to be before they made this delay. So,
well,
it sucks. I was never going to play Starfield, because I'm not a big Bethesda game proper fan. So that game never really interested me to the slightest. If I play that game, it's going to be 5 years after the fact where no one gives a shit about it, and that's me just making the educational, let me see what this game is actually about. Like how I did with Skyrim and how I tried to do with Fallout. But so sucks. We'll get to the second part. The second part was Redfall. I pegged Redfall to be, I love Arcane. They're one of my favorite developers. Like fucking Prey, the Dishonored games, Deathloop, those games fuck. I don't, what happened with Wolfenstein Youngblood, I don't blame you guys for that. That was just Bethesda being in a weird place. But the rest of your games, immersive sim games, those games fuck. Redfall was shaping up to be, at least in my mind, what they showed off a great trailer. Once again, that Xbox conference with a bunch of trailers. Showed off a great trailer for that game. In my head, I'm like, this looks like it's going to be a Left 4 Dead-like game. And then further explanation of it, it's more of a Borderlands type of game. But you wouldn't know that from any of the game that we've seen because we haven't seen any of the game. In my head, this game was shaping up to be their Bleeding Edge. Hey, we were working on this game in the background of us working on other games. We suddenly got bought by Microsoft. Hey, they need games for Game Pass. Let's get this game out the door. And that's how, in my head, I was looking at Redfall.
So when you say Bleeding Edge, you mean achieve the same success as Bleeding Edge?
Yes.
That game
and yes, and that it wouldn't have the quality of their other games, if that makes sense. Because in the way it was produced.
Yeah. Got
so to quote Shigeru Miyamoto, Rust game is bad forever. Delayed game has a chance to be good. So power on these devs. Hopefully you get more work. Hopefully there's no crunch involved. They pushed both of these games to 2023 in the first half, so both of these games have a full-on year. In Bethesda's case, I'm hoping you guys polish that shit up, and I'm hoping we finally get the Bethesda fans finally get the first non-buggy, non-problematic Bethesda game of all time. And Redfall, I hope what makes Arcane great is in that game. Because a four-person multiplayer shooter doesn't work with the sort of exploration, multiple paths, immersive sim sort of idea that I have on Bethesda with Arcane games. That being said, delaying both those games has put Microsoft in a weird place. Because up until as far as we're aware, until they announced it with their E3 showcase, which at the time we were thinking it was going to be about these two games, but now they've been delayed, so we'll probably see them now. We have nothing from Microsoft from the end of the year, and as far as I'm aware, we've had nothing for them for the beginning of the year. So they're in a weird place where Game Pass is their only lifeline at this instant.
You got Call of Duty on there now, though. 69 billion Call of Duty.
Yeah, that's true. It's one of those things where I'm sure this probably hurt the expectations of a lot of players for their fall. And another thing I actually heard going around was that actually the message of, hey, Xbox isn't, or Game Pass specifically doesn't have the stuff you want. Unsubscribe. Just unsubscribe from it and then jump back whenever it has games. And it's just I wonder. I mean, we're not going to see it because, of course, Xbox or Microsoft will never announce how many players have left their service. But I wonder if they're going to see some kind of wave or some kind of shift happen. It may pick up next year whenever they start talking about the games again.
It's hard to parse because this isn't like a Netflix situation where Netflix is suddenly in a place where like they made some creative decisions that causing their business decisions that causing their subscribers to just dip. This is Xbox creating this sort of cult of personality around Game Pass to have people loyal to it, combined with the inherent predatory nature of a subscription service, which its entire purpose is you get it and then you forget about it until you look at your bank account a year later. I'm like, I've been paying for this for about a year and I haven't used it. So I don't think they're going to see much loss for that. And the interesting thing is the skull what the people are saying is that how Microsoft will react to this, and the idea is they're just going to throw money at big games to get them as Game Pass first in terms of like representation on the console, which is going to be interesting because a story that sort of went under the radar this week that I was interested in because I'm still of the mindset that Game Pass is based on Netflix. Netflix has these certain pitfalls that people who understand like production understand that have been sort of buried under the sort of like more positive statements of it. But I think the team behind fucking Fury talked about how Game Pass fucked them.
Oh.
In that it's a weird story. I'm gonna link it in our Discord because I don't want to talk out of turn, but it was like one of those things where like we're probably going to see more and more like the bad future for Game Pass in those subscription services, and why I don't want any of them is that we get to a future where games can only exist on them.
Yeah, I mean that was the same thing that happened with Oddworld on PlayStation side.
Yes, the same thing that happened. Yeah. And like, and
well, I mean, I don't know why he thought that was going to be a million.
Yeah,
well, a little thought previously with that one, but yeah, in terms of presentation, but I don't want I've been on record. I don't want any subscription services. Next week, you're going to hear us talk about subscription services, and I'm going to talk about how great it is as a service. I'm not going to subscribe to it, but I'm going to talk about how great it is as a service because it's objectively a good service. But I don't want it. Marcus, put some Jon Snow in here. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah. That was the final story. Unless.
All right. Well, that has been our quick hits. Well, with that being the case, this has been another episode of Press X to Start podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed making it. Don't forget to rate and review us on your favorite podcasting apps because every little bit helps. I haven't said it in a long time, but it's true every time I say it. Also remember to like, share, and subscribe on your favorite YouTube channel, which is our channel, which is the channel that you're watching this content on now. You're also listening to this content on your favorite podcasting app because you're doing both because you love us that much. If you've missed any of the details, if you wanted to see our faces, you can do that and find all the information and more on our website at pressx2start.com. Until next time, where we'll be talking about what Sony plans to do to correct its own mistakes and Ubisoft Plus and more on our next episode. So you be safe and you take care.
Bleh.